Welcome back. And now we're going to dive into one of my favorites and most critical aspects of market research, identifying and recruiting your target audience. Today, I'll guide you through the process of finding the right people to test your cannabis products, ensuring your feedback that you gather is meaningful and actionable. Recruiting and who you choose makes a difference. So before you start recruiting, define who your ideal participants are for your purposes. What are their age, gender, occupation, cannabis usage habits? Only focus on the ones that matter. So for instance, if you're targeting heavy cannabis users, your profile might focus on people who consume full-strength cannabis products multiple times a week or even multiple times a day. If you're targeting newer customers, you might want to focus on people who are curious about cannabis or your product or have only tried it infrequently. Creating detailed profiles will help guide your recruiting process and ensure that you're getting feedback from the right people. One of the biggest mistakes I see companies make is assuming that everyone is their target audience. That is virtually never the case unless you're selling air, I guess. But if you're testing a product designed for a different demographic, like a low-dose THC edible for a more health-conscious audience, make sure the people participating in the test reflect that group. Current customers of your product may already know your product. They may have loyalty in addition to that brand familiarity, and that can skew their feedback. They might be more forgiving or influenced by prior experiences with your brand. Newer potential customers, on the other hand, can provide fresher, more unbiased opinions, which is essential if you're trying to enter a new market or focus on a new segment. So here's a practical takeaway. Recruit from diverse pools, but ones that reflect the audience you're trying to reach. This could include current customers, potential customers, even people who have never tried the particular form that you're offering before. For example, if you're launching a one-to-one THC CBD product aimed at health and wellness consumers, maybe you get creative. Maybe you recruit from fitness clubs, wellness centers, or yoga studios. It's not just about who your current customers are, but who you want your customers to be. This targeted recruitment is what ensures your feedback is relevant. In fact, the process of finding the right people is so important that I'm going to provide a template for a product testing consumer recruiting screener and an accompanying video that focuses just on that. So, how many participants do you need? This depends on the scope of your study. For do-it-yourself product testing, anywhere between 20 and 50 participants is a good range for gathering meaningful insights without being overwhelmed by too much data or the impracticalities and cost of recruiting an even larger sample. So keep in mind that your target audience may influence this number. If you're testing a highly niche product, you might need fewer participants. For a broader study, you may want a larger pool to capture a wider range of opinions. Very rarely does anyone show up, let alone on time, so that'll be a factor to consider later. The next step in recruiting participants is deciding on your approach to getting people. How you recruit people depends on your target audience, your resources, and the specific goals of the study. So you've got several recruitment approaches to choose from. The cheapest for any study where it's sponsored openly by your brand is client list recruitment. If you have an existing customer base, this can be a natural place to go for recruiting already engaged customers. However, these customers already know your brand and your products, and they're likely to provide feedback that's informed by or colored by their previous experience with your products. This is especially useful, though, for loyalty-focused studies where you want to measure how current consumers feel about a new product. For instance, you may have an existing formulation and you want to test if you swap out maybe a more affordable way to put together the product, whether current customers will notice or be bothered by, whether it will improve their experience or could backfire, in which case you want to revisit whether that's a business move you want to make. Anyways, you want to balance the goals with recruiting new customers versus current customers so you can get the perspective that you need. Another option is called intercept recruitment. This involves approaching potential participants in real time, often in a physical location like an event where cannabis consumers are likely to be present. This method allows you to target people who are already engaged in your product category. For example, setting up a booth at a music festival can provide you with access to highly relevant participants who are likely to be interested in cannabis products because there's often a natural overlap. The key here is immediacy. You're intercepting participants in a setting that's closely related to their cannabis consumption habits. It's ideal for studies where you need immediate on-the-spot feedback. My preferred approach for a blinded study, though, is targeted recruitment. This involves actively seeking out participants that match a specific demographic and behavioral profile. For example, if you're developing a low THC product aimed at health-conscious, canna-curious customers, you'll want to focus on recruiting from places where these people go. This method ensures your study reflects the opinions of a precise group of customers that you're targeting. You can achieve this through social media ads, direct outreach to relevant groups, or partnership organizations that cater to your demographic. However, if you need a large or highly specific sample, outsourcing your recruiting to professional service or a market research firm is probably the way to go. These services specialize in finding participants who match very specific criteria, saving you the legwork and the risk of bias. For example, if you need to recruit medical cannabis consumers who also suffer from chronic pain, a recruitment service can help you source qualified participants efficiently. However, this comes at a higher cost, so you'll need to consider whether it's cost justified and budget for it accordingly. Once you've chosen your recruitment method, it's time to build a strategy. A solid recruitment strategy includes clear goals, a timeline, and a way to track your progress. Recruitment can take time, so it's important to build in a realistic timeline. How long will it take to recruit enough participants? Be sure to leave room for last-minute cancellations and replacements. And if you're running in-home tests and need to ship products to participants, factor in shipping times as well. By creating a timeline that aligns with your testing schedule, you can set yourself up for success in terms of your study remaining on track. Social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook can be powerful tools for reaching potential participants, but the risk is what's called self-selected sample. If your target audience is tech-savvy, social media ads targeted to a specific demographic can help you recruit people who meet your criteria. Alternatively, you can use a customer email list or send out an invitation to participate in the study. Just make sure your recruitment messaging clearly explains what the study is, what participants get out of it, and how long it will take. Recruiting participants requires clear communication and organization. So you'll need some key documents to streamline the process and ensure your participants understand their role. But before confirming a participant's spot in your study, you're going to want to gather answers from them to ensure that they fit your criteria. This process and the survey-style questions asked are called a recruiting screener. Ask questions about their cannabis consumption habits, any allergies, specific conditions that might impact the study's results. Screening will help you weed out, no pun intended, participants who may not provide useful feedback. So you're going to want to have a set of email templates to save you time. You'll need initial recruitment emails to invite potential participants, then later on a confirmation email with the necessary details, reminder emails, and each email will include different critical information, reinforce some information that's extremely relevant. And many people are relying on text and barely check email. So also have text templates in place, even as to instruct participants to check their email for more details. You're going to want to include like a link to an agreement that they can review and sign digitally from a computer or mobile device. A lot of people do not have access to printers, so asking for what's called a wet signature, like an actual signature, is unrealistic. Your agreement should include details about confidentiality, the right to withdraw, and everything you need in a combined waiver and disclaimer agreement. And managing participant recruitment can become overwhelming when you're tracking these documents and these different factors. Luckily, there are tools that can help. And again, if you need more information or you need more support, you can always reach out to us. But for smaller studies, a simple Excel or other spreadsheet may be all you need to track participant details, like contact information, confirmation status, whether they've digitally signed their combined waiver disclaimer. Just make sure your spreadsheet includes columns for all the different aspects of things. There are also some qualitative recruitment platforms that can automate some of the recruitment process and enable you to filter participants by specific criteria, location, and communicate with them inside a platform. This is helpful when you need to recruit participants quickly or when you're dealing with a harder to reach audience. However, the payment is usually embedded in the platform, which can become problematic later. Once you've recruited participants, effective communication is key to ensuring they show up and follow through. A confirmation email is great, but you should also send one day and 2 days before. You want to make sure participants don't forget about the commitment they made, and be sure to include any last minute instructions like transportation details or preparation guidelines. I would also recommend providing digital vouchers for Uber or ensuring they are located near easy public transportation so that nobody's driving under the influence under any circumstances. So in conclusion, recruiting the right participants is critical to the success of your cannabis product test. By using proven recruitment strategies, creating organized documents, leveraging tools to manage the process, you can ensure that your study gathers meaningful insights from people who matter most to your brand. And in our next lesson, we'll also talk about how to create other templates and resources that will protect both your your participants as well as yourself going in. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next lesson.